if anyone is worried about it, they're right to be worried about something like it's going to take over every technical thing in the world and turn into one big sentient Skynet thing. That's not necessarily the biggest problem to worry about.
I think those stories, those concerns are what triggers women to push back and say, no, I don't want to get involved in this.
If we just think of AI as a bit of a helpless child at the moment, then it takes away the scariness a little bit. It's very young.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. I'm your host for today. I'm Gem and I'm here with my friends Alex and Matt. So before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gaming the system for some exclusive content, or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address, wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com.
Today, we are using the Women in Games Manifesto as a jumping off point to discuss where we are with regards to equality and diversity within the gaming industry. In our last episode, we talked about the paradox that whilst at least 50% of gamers are female, only 24 to 30% of the workforce within the industry are made up of women. So we talked a little bit around why that might be the case and how a manifesto like this might help that or might not help that, and about the importance of unionizing and recognizing that these things can take time. So Matt was saying that it's quite important sometimes to have a big moment to move things on, to shift the dial. And so I was wondering about the issue of artificial intelligence. Now, I'm going to be a bit geeky here and say that when we talk about AI and artificial intelligence, we're not actually necessarily meaning sentient artificial beings. We are talking about AI that we are interacting with, probably most of us on an almost daily basis, whether you love or hate it. I don't want to get too embedded in the discussion around the rights and wrongs of using AI within the creative industry, because I think that's a very challenging topic and we could be here for the whole episode talking about that. So let's park that for another day. But what I would like to talk about is whether or not we feel that AI can be a very impactful aspect in this discussion around equality within the games industry, and whether it's going to be a positive one or a negative one, or how we feel about that. I just want to say that 36% of developers are now claiming to be using generative AI on a daily basis. And that goes up to 58% when you move into publishing and marketing. So it's a considerable amount of people using AI within the games industry already. 20% of new games on Steam also disclosed the use of AI by the middle of last year, 2025. So this is moving quickly. However, an important factor is that research from UNESCO in 2024 and 2025 talks about the fact that LLMs like ChatGPT and Gemini are still consistently associating women with domestic roles and men with leadership roles, and things like, executive and career tends to trigger very stereotypical gender-based roles, because the LLMs are being trained on existing data, and that data is often biased already. So they are picking up these inherent biases in our society, and then they are rolling those back out. Now, I did my own little bit of AI research in preparation for today. I did actually ask Gemini to create an image of a young video gamer. That's what I said, to just a young video gamer. And what it gave me was a young man in a purpley lit bedroom with 2 monitors. He's got a glowing keyboard and a headset. And yeah, he's probably about 17, 18. And then I said, a game designer. It was the same young man, but instead of a game on the screen, it was something that looks like it could be code. Then I said, a middle-aged CEO. And weirdly, I think it's the same young man, all grown up, but he's still in his same bedroom.
Weird.
I like the lighting that he's got there, but he's basically a reasonably attractive middle-aged man with a beard and a suit. So maybe it created that image because it was just doing iterations. And so because it had started with this young man as the gamer, when I said CEO, it made that link. So I went onto a new chat and just said, do me a picture of a middle-aged CEO. And it's a slightly older man in a suit. He's holding a tablet and he's standing over a cityscape, looking over a cityscape, standing by the glass wall. It says Global Ventures, and looking very suave and sophisticated and casual, but again, male. And then I thought, okay, so then I went into another new chat and I did a video game designer, and this was a woman. This was a pretty ordinary looking woman. She's got a hoodie on. She's got a graphics tablet in front of her. And then she's got sort of game design stuff in the background. So I was quite pleased with that. I then asked it to show me a teenager playing Roblox. And this was a boy, again, a younger boy, but he's got 3 monitors. So, you know, lucky him, and some crisps and a can of Coke. But when I said a AAA game producer, I got a very sophisticated woman. She's got jeans and a suit jacket on. She's got a short bob and she's holding a glass see-through screen. So, you know, so this is obviously set very long time in the future. Yes. So women will be AAA game producers, but not until
today.
20. It is by no means an official piece of research. But it was interesting just to have a look at what AI thinks who would have these roles. And I just thought it was an interesting experiment, really, to look into that. And it does go some way to sort of suggesting that, there is a bias towards men, male gamers, male game creators, male CEOs. And so there is this bias within AI. I listen to quite a lot of podcasts about AI, and I know that they have been working quite hard to tackle these issues, but I think that one of the fundamental problems is that there are even less women working in the AI industry than they are working in the games industry. I think they suffer from the exact problem that we were talking about within the games industry.
I've had my worries about AI in terms of its impact on art and its impact on perceptions of reality blown out of the water recently, quite literally, because it uses so much water. AI uses so much water to cool itself down. And so it's like with climate change, the biggest dangers it's presented is that it's going to it's going to burn the world to the ground before it can have these longer term impacts that it might have through like the content it creates. So that terrified me from that perspective. With and another thing about AI, it's still like a bit of a magic trick, a one-size-fits-all thing. So it's like when you have a sidekick and he says, "Oh, is there someone out there? I'm seeing a man." A man. You go, "Yes, I'm a man." And you know someone who maybe not died but has left your life recently. "Oh, yes, yes." Just make it, every question you put out, it'll come back with something like that. It appears specific but is actually incredibly generic. Those images, you could change one part of them and then apply them to any other like kind of inquiry. And one of the problems with AI is that it feels like it speaks with one voice, no matter what it is outputting. One thing that worried me a bit about the Women in Games Manifesto, the subheadings and the titles of things. But that's only because AI has read actually every single like heading and title of like anything ever. And so when you ask it to title something, it'll output something that just feels like it was made by AI. And I think regulation is important. But again, particularly with AI, this is the tip of the spear that's driving the world forwards at the minute, is this AI arms race. Because all of the problems comes from capitalism, like supercharging these issues. Because if you have AI and it's done locally on your own devices, then it's sustainable because it's heating up and cooling down wherever you're doing the work. So AI can be okay doing that. But the problem comes when it's the AI data centers where that is where all the AI work is actually done. And they are sucking up all of the, not just water, but the precious mineral resources. Gaming is going to get more and more expensive because AI is going to take all the graphics cards. And I feel like AI I can't predict what the outcomes are going to be with it in terms of like cultural stuff, other than it's not going to be a decisive force for good. It's just the scale of like how bad it's going to make things by proxy. Yeah, it's just another area where it's out of control, and I'm not sure what we can do about it.
A friend of mine shared a story recently. It wasn't a rant per se, it was more of sort of a chat to camera about AI. And it really sort of opened up my perspective on things. I agree with you, it's incredibly a big, scary thing, and it's just not really very nice to think about. But what she said kind of helped me to feel less fearful about it. And I'll explain what I mean. Basically, she said that when you're getting AI to help you on projects at work, or you're getting it to check something or draw up a plan for something, she said, imagine it's like a 5-year-old. If you wouldn't give a piece of work to a 5-year-old to check through and send it off somewhere, then don't send it through AI. And I thought that was just really funny and also really, well, not a relief per se, but it's just an interesting perspective, and it takes away some of that fear and negativity around it. If we just think of AI as a bit of a helpless child at the moment, then it takes away the scariness a little bit. And it also helps us to be more realistic. Should we be using it? It's very young. It's not settled into the world. Okay. Other people teaching it, the right people to be teaching it, that's what we're talking about today. It's also really interesting to think about it as basically this unshaped, unformed thing. Doesn't really know much about itself even at the moment. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it.
I don't want to try and burst the bubble of safety that you found in this, but it's a bit like Lenny from Mice and Men. Massive, big, strong guy, but with the mind of a child. And he ends up killing a rabbit and a woman because he held them too tightly.
Ah, yes.
And so it is if it is a 5-year-old, it is a 5-year-old.
A lot of strength.
Just
but it doesn't know how
practically infinite strength that it's
or that is being moulded by people who might use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting way of thinking about it, I think.
I'm going to push back on both of the things that you've both said, actually. So firstly, on the water usage, this is a little bit of a red herring, I think, that data centers do use up a lot of water, and there are issues around it, not least when they're put in an area that maybe doesn't have a lot of water, because if they stop running, then lots of money will be lost. They end up taking priority over the water usage in those areas. So that might mean that if there's a drought or if there's some other issue around water, they will get the priority of the water over the local population. And obviously that is extremely problematic. However, when it actually comes to the statistics, farming and other industries are using considerably more water than AI is, even at the moment and going forward. And I think that it's really important that we think about our water usage. The problem is that it isn't just AI that's the issue here. AI is just the latest thing that's using up lots of water. And what we need to do is recognize that humans in general are just using too much water in very incompatible ways. I like the fact that a lot of pressure is being put on data centers to find better ways of utilizing water. And things like cyclic cooling systems are already being put into place. And I do also think it's important that the governments put pressure on data centers when they're being built, that as part of that process, they are putting in systems that can actually utilize water in a more mindful and considerate way. I have hope that going forward, because of this reaction to the amount of water that data centers suck up, that unlike farming, they will actually be forced to come up with better ways of managing that, and they won't become as problematic as animal farming is in the world. The second point is around the amounts of computer equipment that they are creaming off. And that is a massive problem, Matt. And I think that the vast majority of people have no clue of how impactful that is going to become. During the pandemic, we saw a massive increase in costs of computer parts. And everyone sort of laughed about that because we thought that it was just going to be a temporary problem due to lockdowns and things like that, and that once they got up and running it would be fine. But now these companies are now being told not to even be making stuff for the domestic market anymore. Then these things are just being made to support the data centers, and that is going to be problematic for us all going forwards. And I think it could well have a massive impact on the PC industry, on the laptop industry, more so than the console industry, just because they have such a lot of buying power in the consoles. But if you're looking to build your own PC, it's hugely expensive now. Not just, everything. I mean, during the pandemic, it was graphics cards, and now it's graphics cards, it's RAM, it's hard drives. Everything has gone up hugely. You're talking about £1,500 to buy something that a few years ago would have cost you 700 quid. It's crazy. I think that is a big issue.
And an interesting thing to so it always feels like there's us, the peasants, and then them, the ruling class, up there in an ivory tower thing and all winning together. But now we are at a point where, unfortunately, it's this case because they have successfully siphoned all the resources up to themselves. But now that means that we've got these massive corporations and massive billionaires actually at odds with each other, because if you're Microsoft and you're worrying about all the hardware for your PCs, and it's not just PCs, it's literally every appliance. Everything has a mini computer in it now. The AI, and then you've got the AI industry and billionaires who want all of the stuff for their data centers. And we're at this point where it's like cyberpunk, when there are 3 mega corporations and they're basically the world powers and they have wars amongst themselves. Then you've got China in it as well, who hold the keys to the way to process all the natural minerals. China's like a massive wild card because it's an authoritarianism, but it's not a capitalist like authoritarianism like there is in America. And it is like ruling most of the world that is like in the kind of society like China is. So I don't know who's going to win or what's going to decide who's going to win, because it's not going to be us that is going to be the deciding thing in it, probably.
What really worries me at the moment is that the issues that the general population are talking about when it comes to their worries and fears around AI are not the issues that we need to be talking about. What we need to be talking about is who is teaching the AI, how is that happening? In many cases, even the people who are working on it don't really know how it's happening. The power and the knowledge of how to actually educate AI. You were talking about having the intelligence of a 5-year-old, these little AI creatures. Yeah, but the people who are handling them at conception, at birth, there's a very small group of people who have the knowledge, who have the understanding of doing that, and all of them are male, and all of them have come out of this bro culture and this tech bro world. It's extremely problematic, and you've got Trump who's just going like, we just want to win the race, we don't care, we just want to go as fast and as hard as possible. And that's why you end up with Grok, Musk's AI, coming out with all of this racist, sexist stuff and extremely offensive stuff. And you have OpenAI, who started up as a not-for-profit organization, and now they've just changed all of that and we want to make money. That it's just very problematic, the sorts of people who are running these systems. And I was listening to Hard Fork podcast, which I would definitely recommend. I think it's New York Times, but it's like AI stuff. It's quite techy, but it's not too boring. It's kind of done with quite lightheartedly. So they're talking about all this super scary stuff, but in a very casual way. But they were saying about one of them, can't remember which one now, where I think it's Claude, where they're in an argument now with the Ministry of Defense in the US over the fact that they want to keep certain safeguards in place around what their AI is and isn't allowed to get involved in from a military perspective. And the Ministry of Defense is saying that they want to cancel the contract because they want to be able to bypass those conditions. And even in a scenario where you've got an organisation that is trying to put in safeguards, you've now got governmental organisations trying to override those. And this is where I think the real issue is, that we have a powerful, impactful software, effectively is what it is, machines that are being designed by men for men, in a male world. So I think these are the things that we need to be talking about, but you hear so little being talked about it.
Yes, completely. That's perhaps the more scary prospect, isn't it? He is moulding the AI to become what it is.
And it would be so much more just acceptable, like, to be like, oh yeah, of course. If it wasn't these people, if it wasn't Musk and Trump and Zuckerberg, they're not these Machiavellian Lex Luthor. They are just the most simple little men. And it's just going, them? Really? You want someone who looks the part and sounds the part.
And I suppose one of the things why I want to push back against this idea that it's childlike, that we don't need to worry about it because it's childlike, the idea that it's harmful to the environment, all of these things in the conversations that I've had tend to impact women and speak to women more than men. So the men are sort of like, oh, I'm kind of going along with AI. It's probably will kill us all, but, it's where we're at. And the women are saying, but what about the environment? Is it really going to be able to do anything? I think those stories, those concerns are what triggers women to push back and say, no, I don't want to get involved in this. Am I being sexist? Am I wrong there? What do you think?
I think that it's a very broad topic. And as each of us have come in with different areas that we're particularly worried about, it's overall a worrying thing. And that, I don't think you're being sexist.
Say, really.
I think it's just...
No, I don't think so. But, maybe it's just the circles I'm in and the algorithm I have. I feel like more women are talking about it than men. But again, that might just be my algorithm and the people I follow online. I created a sort of echo chamber for myself, perhaps, like we all do. It's not to say that men don't have these worries. Of course they do. Matt's here sitting with us talking about them.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think maybe men do sort of shrug it off a bit more and be like, AI, it's so funny, isn't it? Or whatever. But again, that's probably me making generalisations. But it's a difficult one.
I think I'm going to say, if anyone is worried about it, they're right to be worried.
Yeah, definitely.
If they're worried about something like it's going to take over every technical thing in the world and turn into one big sentient Skynet thing, that's not necessarily the biggest problem to worry about. I don't know if many people think it is like there's like one or two problems with it and they go, as long as we deal with those two problems, then I'm happy with it. I'm not happy with the people in charge of training it. I'm not happy with the environmental impact. I'm not happy with the artistic impact. I'm not happy with the deep fake impact. And I just think there isn't really a wrong answer for why it's a problem.
No. Yeah, take your pick.
I suppose my concern is that we need more women to be involved with it. We need more women to be using it. We need more women to be engaged with it because it's a useful tool and the Pandora's box has been opened now. It's out there. And if we're not using it, if women don't have a place at the table, if minority groups don't have a place at the table in the discussion about it, in the use of it, in actually caring about how it can be utilised, then they're not going to be pointing out that, when you put in computer gamer, it pops out a picture of a young man. When you put in CEO, it pops out a picture of a suited middle-aged man. Those are the things that I just worry about, that women have to be engaged with it in order to spot these issues and push back on them and to put pressure on our governments and policymakers to actually put in the safeguards, the guardrails that we need in order to protect our environment and our societies from the potential harms that can be caused.
Yeah. With regulation and enforcement, there is an answer to most problems in terms of just regulating them. And then that's the absolute death, like the deathly fear of the ruling class is not being able to do absolutely everything that they want.
Yeah. I think it does. I think if it does anything good, it flags up how powerful the tech bros have become, because I think it's AI that's made us all realise that. Until that point, we hadn't really recognised it yet.
Yes. It's in the dots a bit, hasn't it? I was going to ask a theoretical question about the experiment that you had. What do you think it would have said if you'd have typed in response to one of those pictures where it was showing a man instead of a woman? If you'd have said, "Why have you shown me a man?" What do you think it would have said back?
Well, shall I ask it?
Yeah.
Okay. Live on air.
I'm just slightly intrigued to know what it would say. It's not my fault. I was trained this way.
And another thing I hate with the AI-ification of written stuff is it's both sidesing everything. It goes right back to secondary school. When you write an essay, you write an introduction, you write the argument for one side, you write the argument for the other side, then you write a conclusion. And you go, right, this is an essay about Shakespeare and Milton. Milton does this thing, Shakespeare does this thing, and at the end, Shakespeare's good at this thing, but Milton is also good at this thing, making them both very good at this thing.
Yeah.
And that structure, that AI structure there comes and slaps me across the face when I read so much stuff.
Very much so.
It says, why did you draw a male in these images? And it says, that's a fair challenge. When you gave me those short, open-ended prompts like a young video gamer or a game designer, my generation process defaulted to common stereotypical representations found in the data I was trained on.
There we go.
Without specific instructions on gender, the model often pulls from the most statistically frequent visual associations for those roles, which in the tech and gaming industries frequently skews male in stock imagery and media. It's a bit of a digital echo chamber where the AI repeats existing biases rather than actively diversifying by default. It's a good reminder to be more intentional with the variety I provide, rather than just coasting on the most common data patterns.
Well, it's just going to keep coasting, isn't it? Don't lie to us.
I like saying that. Like, what are you going to do with that? Well, I'll probably carry on having this conversation with it, and I'll report back to you all as to where that goes.
How intriguing. How intriguing.
I think it's interesting to have those kind of conversations with AI. And I urge everyone who's listening really to get into, you don't need to pay OpenAI money. You can access AI chatbots in various different places for free. But have those conversations. Challenge it, ask it why they're doing this the way they're doing it. As my understanding is that most of these conversations don't get used in any kind of learning processes. They're usually more generalized if they take anything into their learning system, which I think is a bit of a shame because I think there are massive issues with it using that. But it would be nice to feel that you were nudging it in a more positive direction by having these conversations. I don't think that's possible. But yeah, I think it's worth having these conversations with it just to get a feel for what it's thinking. And then the next thing you need to do is write to your MP, I guess, and ask them to keep an eye on it. And I did do that about the water issue. Last year, I wrote to Ed Miliband and I wrote to my local MP as well to say that I had concerns about the water and how that was being factored into the planning processes for these data centers, especially when you think about location. I think they could be putting them somewhere like Wales, where they have lots of water, but maybe somewhere like Oxfordshire, which is one of the driest parts of the country, is perhaps not the best place to be building them. So I didn't get anything very interesting back. So that's one way we can make ourselves heard, but we can't engage in that discussion if we don't understand how it's working. Thank you both so much for this. It's been really, really interesting. And as always, I find that when I come to you guys with a conversation topic, always goes in interesting and exciting ways that I never expected. And I always come away having learned something and expanded my understanding of whatever we're talking about. So thank you both so much for your engagement with this, as always. And we're here every Thursday. If you thought this was interesting, let us know, comment, like, subscribe, pass it on to somebody who you think might be interested in the impact of AI on gaming.
Yeah.
We're going to have to come back to the topic.
We will.
And we'll see you very soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.